Welcome back here today on the beautiful campus of Florida Panhandle Technical College, another in our series of what's going on in the community. And right now, unless you're living under a rock, you know that we're preparing for the first day of school. Along with that comes all of the sports seasons, all of the extracurricular activities. We're looking forward to the smell of wood smoke and that little touch of coolness in the air that tells us that it's football season. However, here in the South, we start while it's still oven-baked hot. Right now with us is Laurie Simmons and Gerald Tranquille. You've met Gerald before. Gerald is the head football coach and athletic director of Vernon High School in Vernon, Florida. And Laurie, the reason she's here today is because she is the first female football coach in the history of Vernon High School, as far as we know. And when we come back, we're going to talk to Laurie and Gerald about the upcoming Vernon football season. You know, if you live in the South, actually if you live anywhere, football is king. And if you go to any large school, or actually small school, let's face it, we say everybody gets a trophy, but everybody keeps score. And nothing is more competitive than high school football right here in the Florida Panhandle. When we come back, we're going to talk about all that and more, and we will be right back. Welcome back. As mentioned, our guests today are Laurie Simmons, the very first female football coach in Vernon, Florida High School, and Gerald Tranquille. You've met Gerald before. Gerald's, this is your third year coming up?
Second.
Just only second.
Yeah.
Man, it just seems like longer.
Yeah, it does.
Gerald is the head football coach as well as the athletic director of Vernon High School. Thanks, first of all, for taking the time. I know that you guys, school starts tomorrow, and we tried to do this earlier, and as things happen, you know, things get in the way, but I really appreciate you, extra specially, taking the time today, because I know your hands are full.
So thank you for having us.
Yeah,
yes, thank you very much.
Gerald, you came on with Principal Brian Revere, just before you started your first year. Now you're going into your second year. Give us just a little thumbnail sketch of your experiences so far since you've been on the Vernon campus.
Last year was definitely a roller coaster. This year slowed down a lot. I'm thankful for that. Had a lot on my plate coming in, trying to change the culture, change the expectations, and it took a little bit. Started last year with about 15 seniors. I think we ended the year with 8. So anytime you come in, you have change. Some people adapt to it, some don't. So from that aspect, things have been a whole lot better. I'll tell you, these kids have been a lot of fun. They've worked hard this summer. We had out of 26 kids, we had 19 that made 90% or better participation this summer. So that was definitely key to, a lot of things getting better this summer. But it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun. Definitely a lot of weight lifted off my shoulder in year 2.
You followed on the heels of Coach Willie Spears. Anybody who knows Willie and has come to know Gerald knows you guys couldn't be any farther apart as far as your philosophies, your personalities, and so forth. But regardless of who you had come behind, There is that change that you're talking about.
Right.
How is your reception at this point? Now that you got one full year under your belt, what is that relative relationship? Let's just keep it to the players and their parents and their families. How, if at all, has that relationship changed, or how have they come to either accept you or not over that period of time?
Well, coming into Vernon, I know being the third head coach in like 6 years, it was kind of reserved at first. Parents didn't know what to think, and that's understandable. But I tell you what, this past year and going through the year with me, I've had a lot of support. The kids know I care, and the kids are my biggest advocates. So they've gone home and told the parents about me. I've had a chance to actually meet more of the parents, being here a year, and it's been great. I've had a lot of support. Started our touchdown club this year. I'm still looking for more membership from that, and that's just a tribute to the parents trusting in me and believing in what I'm trying to do at Vernon.
You talk about support. Every small town, I think, shares that common trait of giving until it hurts and sharing and supporting. In Vernon, it never ceases to amaze me, from the Jacket's Nest to all the other restaurants, from all the businesses, even Chipley businesses giving to Vernon, even outside of Washington County in some cases. You enjoy a huge support. Talk just for a second about what that means, not just to you to be able to carry on the program fiscally, but the fact that these kids, when they get on that field, they look around and they know everybody really does support them in many more ways than just coming out to watch.
Right. It really is small town football at its best. In this whole area of North Florida, you can't have a successful program without a successful community. And I tell you what, not only just Vernon, But Chipley, Ebro, even Lynn Haven, some little parts of Panama City have really supported us. And the kids, the younger generation, they really look up to the football players. I mean, these kids go to the middle school, go to elementary school. They want to be just like those kids. So I tell my kids also, you have a lot of responsibility to the community because they do so much for you and the kids look up to you.
Not to talk about Laurie with her sitting right between us like this, but it bears asking, what went into the process of selecting Laurie as that additional football coach? And talk a little bit about your thoughts about all that.
Well, having worked with Laurie with girls basketball last year, she's kind of started hinting to the fact that she wanted to help with football. At first, I thought she was joking. I didn't really take her serious, but she kept telling me every day, I'm coming out there, I'm coming out there. And so spring football started, and she came out. And she was just really hungry about it and was a go-getter, and she didn't give me a chance to say no. And so she got out there in spring. I told her, I really need you to help me stay on track. Needed somebody to help me with the schedule and to keep me straight. And she did just that. And she actually brought a young lady with her to help manage and video for us. So she's already, paid dividends for her. So, I mean, it was just a huge burden and weight off my shoulders to have Laurie come out there and take a lot of the, I don't want to say paperwork or grunt work off me, but that's kind of what it is. And we're kind of grooming her and molding her to actually learn the game of football and be able to help on the field also.
People don't realize that in any business, you've got the people that have the spotlight on them, but behind them are very many support personnel. You've got 11 guys on the field, but how many hundreds of people, inclusive of families and parents and supporters and support staff to make that happen? Forgive us for talking about you in your presence, but I wanted to ask that question because I wanted to ask you, tell me your thought process, Laurie. I know that you've been coaching tennis. You got involved in the basketball. Now the football. You've got a daughter who's done very, very well in sports. Talk a little bit about what went into that thought process that made you want to and embrace that coaching of football.
Well, he and I worked really well together with basketball. I was thrown into it. I knew nothing about basketball. I learned so much from him. Very organized. I liked his coaching style. He's not a screamer. I don't ever hear him just shrieking at the boys out on the football field. He talks to them the way you would want to be talked to, but he gets through to them. And so I knew that he always needed help. He always said he didn't have enough help. So I wanted to go out and help. So during spring, I went out there and I do whatever I need, to do. And it also, I think, helps the boys realize that I don't just care about their success in the classroom. I care about what they do outside of school. And so the first few weeks of spring football, some of them thought it was pretty cool that I was up there like, hey, Miss Simmons, watch me do this, or hey, did you see me, make that tackle? Did you see me do this? It was really kind of neat for them to see that I care about something other than their scholastic ability.
And let's face it, they relate differently to someone of a different gender. And so, if that person, what you need to get through to them is to have that mama approach, then whatever works.
Definitely.
Again, to talk about Gerald in his presence, and I've said this to Gerald himself, one thing that really impresses me about the coaching method is that not only does he not yell and scream, but sometimes he just simply tells another coach, and then that coach relays the message. Stays very aloof. Not to say that you're not engaged and know everything that's going on with laser pointedness, but what really impresses me is that he allows the other coaches, and especially if they're special teams or if they're one of the specialty coaches, to deal with those kids in the way that coach knows how to deal. And I think that's a sign of maturity and certainly as an educated coach. What do you feel is going to be your biggest challenge going into this football season as a football coach?
I don't know all the rules. I'm learning. I downloaded a book to learn some of the rules, and that's probably the biggest thing is that I just don't know the rules. But I've been out there enough, and yesterday they were out there at practice, and I heard him call some plays, and standing back from my situation, I was like, that kid's not in the right spot. Play ended, they're like, you weren't in the right spot. So I'm learning where they're supposed to be on the field just from watching, and the signals and things. So it's kind of neat to see all of that as it's going on.
We look forward to revisiting with you maybe several times during the season, just to keep getting your thoughts on how that's progressing. Gerald, you mentioned that you finished last year with 8 seniors, so you're down those 8 seniors. You never like to lose seniors, obviously, but I also happen to know that you've got some 10th graders who are coming up. What's the season look like? Not to give anything away to Chipley or any of your other rivals, but what are you looking at going into this season?
Right now, coming out of camp and getting ready for our official scrimmage this Saturday over at Weewall, we've really been trying to keep the guys focused and humble. We had a great spring. Went into spring with a chip on our shoulder. We wanted to prove that we had worked hard and our hard work had paid off. And we had a great spring. Ended up beating Chipley and beating Point St. Joe, and the guys really played hard. But I felt like it was kind of like a double-edged sword. Yes, we played well, but at the same time, it kind of went to our head a little bit, so to speak. And so really been trying to hone them back in and tell them, hey, we want to continue to stay the hunter and not the hunted. Because during the summer, we heard all the chatter, people talking about us, hey, watch out for Vernon, watch out for, that's all fun and dandy, but at the end of the day, you still got to go play the game. And so coming into this summer, we really wanted to make the kids stay hungry, stay focused, because it's going to be a long season. We have goals and expectations that we want to get to, and we can't overlook anybody. So that's really been the focal point. And those 10th graders a lot of them were leaders last year for me as 9th graders. My quarterback, Davion Bush, he ended up starting midway through the season, and he was leading even from the bench. I mean, great kid, great work ethic. And the other sophomores have kind of taken, that lead from him. And so they've really stepped up. We're still trying to get that perfect mesh between the upperclassmen and the sophomores. But I tell you what, like I said earlier, it's been a whole lot more fun. The kids like being around each other this year. There's a lot of chemistry issues going on behind the scenes that a lot of people didn't realize, and that translates to wins and losses. So really having the chemistry aspect better this year is going to continue to help us play better on the field.
Well, and many people don't realize that these scouts are out there looking at you and looking at those kids who are 10th, 11th graders.
Right.
They don't wait until they're seniors to start looking at them, and they, I think, in large part, judge them on what they see in the growth of that player. Mm-hmm. Not the fact that he's a stellar athlete, but the fact that he grows, because that's exactly what they want to do when they get him to a D1 school, certainly, but any college.
Right. I tell my juniors all the time, I say, this is your money year. You can't wait till you're a senior. If you're not getting calls and looks and letters by the time you're a junior, you're already behind. And as a 9th and 10th grader, you're preparing yourself, getting good grades, making sure that when they do start coming to look at you, that you got everything in line that you need to be. You've taken the ACT, you got a good GPA, you're starting to look into what you want to do and be in college. And so we try to tell them 9th, 10th, and 11th grade, you're preparing yourself for your senior year to get recruited.
Woo Woo Dean comes to mind, Chipley High School player, has been a stellar athlete, spent most of the summer visiting schools, and has signed a letter of intent anyway, just going into his senior year. Mm-hmm. Bright stars ahead. Very easy to get a big head and to get hurt because of that, or to do something a little bit less than smart, and we see it all the time. Heck, we see it in college, we see it in high school. Laurie, what do you bring to the table that is going to improve that Vernon football squad?
Well, I had one of the football players yesterday come up to me and say, what can I do? I've got to get my, GPA up. So I said, when school starts, let's sit down, let's look at, what you've taken, let's get you enrolled so you can, take an ACT prep course, because he wants to go on to that next level. Well, we offer AP classes, we offer dual enrollment. Those classes help and make them, a college will look at a student that wants to go as an athlete. Well, if they've taken an AP class, that's a college class, and they've done well in it, they know that they'll be successful at the college level. So it's trying to get them to be successful, in the classroom as well. So I can help tutor students, that are struggling, that need that extra help on the team.
Not to generalize, but do you think that perhaps a woman sometimes may have that little bit of extra patience to be able to deal with those kind of situations? And I know there's guys out there that are great teachers, but at the end of the day, especially when your plate is full as far as doing a lot of the background stuff, but this is a brand new day for Vernon, certainly, and I guess just jumping ahead, looking at what you're going to, just what you've said already, other high schools may be looking at exactly that, almost that, and certainly not to denigrate women, but almost that football mom, the coach / personal coach, where you can talk to a person, a little differently and they're not as intimidated maybe, and maybe they can relate, I don't know. We want equality of the sexes, but at the end of the day, men are different from women. And I can't help but think that a woman would bring to the table certain skill sets. You got a higher tolerance for pain, there's no doubt. I know my wife does than me. More patience, raised 4 kids and 7 grandkids in the case of my wife. Bring a little bit more insight to the table. What has been the response so far from the kids?
It's been really good. In fact, with the heat the last few days, we've had quite a few that didn't take care of themselves enough, and so they got overheated. So make sure we give them water. We have plenty of water, and I was like, drink water, Gatorade, put together the ice bags. And it is kind of that mom thing where, they can come over and for that minute or two that they get that break and get their ice and their water and then go back out there. And it's like, they can hear me shouting from the sidelines. And like, I'm like, come on guys, let's do this. So.
And to piggyback off of that, she has really helped not be able to take a more knowledgeable coach at this time away from the field to tend for a player. She's able to do that for us. And it's really taken a little burden off of us to have to do that. And, guys are hard. Kid goes down. Sometimes we kind of question whether they're hurt or not. Well, she goes over and do it. She has a little sweeter approach to it, so it's really helped in that aspect. We'll go, oh, get up, you're okay. And she'll go over, are you okay? Let me check you out. She can kind of do that, and we can kind of still keep our persona of being hard and tough. So she's it's almost like a good cop, bad cop thing.
But as guys, I think that you would agree, we sometimes like that somebody giving us a little sympathy,
right.
Not somebody just kicking us, telling us to get up.
Oh, I tell them to get up.
We talk about community support. We talk about volunteers. Bruce Robinson, retired again. I don't know how many times this is, but is he involved in any way at this point with the program?
Yes. Mr. Bruce came back to us.
So he did come back.
I would say right before spring and said, I don't want to paint, but I know you need some help cutting the grass. He said, I'll cut the grass for you. So he has came back. He's cutting the grass up on the practice field and at the football field. So, yeah, Mr. Bruce is still around.
Well, I was going to point out that he does so much of that behind-the-scenes stuff. When you talk about just painting the field, people don't realize how much prep work just cutting the grass.
I'm telling you.
It's like Andy Compton at Chipley High School, the baseball coach. Even if there's nothing going on, he's running around out there with a lawnmower. These small schools, we don't have a budget for huge departments or maintenance departments, and so many times you end up taking care of the field yourself.
Definitely.
Bruce, though, talking about him, stellar example of somebody who cares about the kids, who gets out there in the heat, in the cold, doesn't make any difference. Personally, I've seen this. And I was concerned because he told me basically he was just going to get out of it for a while. But I guess you can't keep an old dog down, and that doesn't mean it. I don't mean it in a bad way. It's kind of like if you're a fireman and you retire, you hear those sirens, you just want to jump in your car, So good for you. I mean, he's a huge asset.
Oh yeah. And his core beliefs and his faith kind of align with mine. So having another strong Christian guy out there always helps. And I was kind of worried about him because his son was a senior last year, ended up not being able to play towards ACL. And I was worried that he was trying to get out of it too fast and that he may not have something to kind of fill that void now that Chris has gone on or is going on to other things. So I'm glad he came back out there and to give him something to do. But it's great having him back out there.
So how many seniors do you have going into this year?
9.
So, wow, so fewer than what you started off with last year.
Yeah.
Do you find that through a series of unfortunate circumstances that those seniors seem to peel off a little bit until you find those that are there for the right reason?
Yeah, definitely. Coming in, again, changing the culture, being a little more so, I don't want to say, not to knock the other staff or anything, but kind of holding them a little more accountable, having a little more structure, having a little more discipline. I wasn't able to get some of the other guys that have went through other coaches back out there, but what I have been able to do is get some of the younger kids back out there and kind of groom them and shape them to, my program and my coaches. So I'm getting more of those guys out. So it's been kind of a bittersweet thing. Yeah, I haven't been able to get those seniors out, but I've been able to get some more younger kids out. So it's just going to take us another year or two to get, a bigger group out. I mean, our sophomore group, I think it's about 15, 16 of those guys. So that'll be our first big class coming through.
We have to keep feeding that pipeline. There's no doubt. It's just as important to bring in those freshmen and sophomores as it is to bring along that senior. What's your biggest challenge to date? I know this is just going into your second year, but if you could pick one thing and you wanted to express that to the community, what is your biggest challenge?
It was kind of something that we hit on earlier. It's being in such a small town, small community, and not a lot of businesses. It's the fundraising, and that was one of the main reasons behind starting the touchdown club that we did, is to kind of have somebody to help take the burden off of me going out and fundraising and getting funds to run the program. People don't realize how much it takes to run a football program. You may see some of the bigger things, but you don't see the everyday, day-to-day things that you have to spend money on. You know, the socks, the belts, the knee pads. You have to update your helmets and shoulder pads every so often. I mean, those little bitty things always add up. So it takes a lot to run the program, and we can't do it alone. You know, our county, having 2 schools, and it's hard for a county to support 2 programs, so we have to go out and get the money a lot. But I tell you, last year we went up to Walmart and we did a pass the helmet, and the community really came out and supported us. This year, later on, we're looking to do that again and maybe hit Lynn Haven or Panama City. So if I had to pick one thing, I'd probably say the fundraising aspect of it.
And we were fortunate to be over at Walmart a few times when your guys were over. They were very highly impressed, very nice guys. My wife actually went more than I did, and they were just as polite and nice and didn't even know who she was. They weren't smiling just because she's the one that takes the pictures in the county. You talk about the 2 programs. However, we do have 8 schools in the county, and so whether it's a high school football program or not, there's needs everywhere.
Yes, sir.
Laurie, anything that you would like to add before we close out today?
No, we had a golf tournament. I just want to hit on the fact that we still have, the Touchdown Club is doing the high school program, so we have opportunities for people to advertise in our high school program, as well as signs at the field if somebody has a business and they're not currently advertising at the football field. Now's the time to get involved. We have some new sign opportunities too. There.
Yeah, you guys are looking to put up a new scoreboard. I had a conversation at lunch at the Jacket's Nest just a couple of days ago with one of your personnel, and that's a pretty expensive endeavor. Probably a good time to hit up the political candidates right now, as well as the banks and so forth. Unfortunately, you keep going back to the well, and so maybe over time you need to develop new ways of doing these things. Best of luck going forward. I know you're excited. I know you're also probably just a little bit anxious because until that first whistle blows, you just don't really know. Gerald, thank you again for taking the time, especially today.
Yes, sir.
But best of luck for your program for the entire season. We'll be there. We're not going to go to Weewa. I've just never found a good, easy way to drive to Weewa, and that's a long drive, and I think that Chipley might have a game that might be closer. So, but we will be at your kickoff game, your first game of the season, and as we typically do, we're going to try to follow as many of your games as possible. So thank you again for being here.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Our guests today have been Laurie Simmons and Gerald Tranquille. Laurie, the first female football coach in the history of Vernon, Florida High School, as far as we know. Gerald, no stranger to the show, has been here before. Just well-spoken. We really love Gerald and his family. Assets to the community in every which way. Forget about the football. Good people, and going into his second season, we get a chance to put a little bit more of a magnifying glass on you and see what you do. Gerald mentioned that he hopes that Chipley wins every single one of their games except one,
right.
And so he has his heart in the right place. Thanks very much for joining us today. We'll be right back.